In 1778, a Viennese doctor arrived in Paris with an idea that should not have worked. His name was Franz Mesmer, and his theory, animal magnetism, held that the human body was filled with a magnetic fluid and that illness was caused by that fluid falling out of balance. He claimed he could heal people by channeling the magnetic force through himself and into his patients, restoring the flow, curing the sick. There was no science behind any of it. None. A royal commission eventually investigated his claims and found zero evidence for animal magnetism. The fluid did not exist. The mechanism was fictitious. And yet, Mesmer's Paris apartment became one of the most sought-after destinations in the city. People sat around a large wooden tub filled with iron filings and water, holding metal rods that protruded from the surface. Mesmer himself moved among them in a lilac silk robe, touching patients with a magnetized wand, his assistants sprinkling them with water, harp music playing in the background. People fell into trances. They wept. They felt surges of energy moving through their bodies. They reported cures. Royalty attended. The wealthy paid enormous sums for access. A movement, mesmerism, spread across France and then Europe. Mesmer became extraordinarily famous and extraordinarily rich. Not through medicine, through theatre. That is Law 27 of the 48 Laws of Power. Play on people's need to believe to create a cult-like following. And I want to say up front, this is the law that more than any other in this series requires us to hold two things simultaneously. The mechanics of how this works, which are fascinating and important to understand, and the ethics of it, which are genuinely complicated. We're going to do both. Green opens this law with a claim that sounds cynical, but is actually just observational. People have an overwhelming need to believe in something. This isn't a modern problem. It isn't a product of social media or political polarization or the decline of traditional institutions. It is a constant of human psychology across every culture and every era that we have any record of. People want to belong to something larger than themselves. They want to feel that their lives are oriented toward a meaning, a cause, a direction. They want to feel that they are part of a group that sees the world more clearly than the people outside it. When established structures, religion, political movements, tight-knit communities provide that, people pour themselves into them. When those structures weaken or fragment, people don't stop needing the feeling. They go looking for it somewhere else. And that somewhere else is where power lives. Green's argument is that the person who understands this need, who can offer people something to believe in, a center to organize around, an identity to inhabit, gains access to a form of power that is qualitatively different from ordinary influence, because ordinary influence operates on people's self-interest. You offer them something, they evaluate it, they decide whether to take it. The transaction is conscious. Belief doesn't work that way. When someone genuinely believes, when they feel they have found a cause, a community, a leader who speaks to something deep in them, they stop evaluating transactions. They start defending. They start recruiting. They start making sacrifices they would never make for ordinary self-interest. Their loyalty becomes something close to unconditional. That is not a small amount of power. That is an almost completely different category of it. So how does it actually work? Green gives us 5 steps, and I want to go through them carefully because each one has something important inside it. The first step is to keep things vague. This sounds counterintuitive. Most of us assume that clarity is persuasive, that if you want people to follow you, you should articulate your vision precisely so they know exactly what they're signing up for. Green says the opposite is true. Vagueness is more powerful than precision because precision gives people something to argue with. Vagueness gives them something to project onto. When your message is specific, it has edges. People can see where it ends. They can see the gaps, the contradictions, the things it doesn't account for. When your message is large and suggestive and emotionally resonant, when it promises transformation without specifying exactly what form that transformation will take, people fill in the space with their own desires. They don't hear your vision. They hear their own deepest hopes reflected back at them, and they love you for it. Mesmer never explained animal magnetism in falsifiable terms. He spoke in grand, sweeping language about universal forces and natural harmony and the restoration of balance. His patients couldn't check his claims. They could only feel, and what they felt was real, even if what he was claiming was not. The second step is to emphasize experience over explanation. The person who stands up and makes a rational argument, who walks you through the evidence, addresses the counter-arguments, shows they're working, is appealing to your thinking mind. And your thinking mind is skeptical, it pokes holes, it asks questions. The person who creates an experience, who surrounds you with music, ritual, other people who already believe, a physical environment that communicates importance and significance, is doing something else entirely. They are reaching past the rational mind into something deeper. Emotion, sensation, the feeling of being part of something real. This is why Mesmer didn't just explain his theory. He created a theatre, robes, music, rods, water, trances. The experience felt profound. The explanation was largely irrelevant. The third step is to borrow the structure of organized religion. Not necessarily the content, but the architecture. There is a reason that religious institutions have survived for millennia when most human organizations collapse. They understand something about how to sustain belief over time. You need hierarchy, so there is a sense of depth to enter. You need ritual, so that belonging is performed and reinforced regularly. You need sacrifice, because when people give something up for a cause, they become more invested in it, not less. The act of sacrifice is itself a commitment mechanism. And you need the sense of an inner circle, a group who understands something that outsiders don't. Every durable movement of any kind, political, commercial, spiritual, has these structural elements. The ones that fail tend to lack them. The fourth step is to obscure the money. This is the one most people don't want to talk about. Green is blunt about it. If your followers see you accumulating wealth directly and visibly, the spell breaks. The relationship stops feeling like a shared journey toward meaning and starts feeling like a transaction where you are the primary beneficiary. Disillusionment follows. The solution, and this is what durable movements do, is to root money through structures, organizations, causes. The money serves the mission. You personally are simply a vessel. The financial reality may be identical. The perception is completely different. The fifth step is to create an us versus them dynamic. This is the one that should make you most uncomfortable, and the one that is most universally used. Nothing bonds a group like a shared enemy. Nothing clarifies identity like contrast with an outgroup. The people who don't understand, the forces that want to keep you down, keep you asleep, keep you from the truth that this movement possesses. The enemy doesn't need to be real in any precise sense. It needs to feel real. It needs to give followers something to push against, a reason their sacrifices make sense, a narrative that explains why the world hasn't yet recognized what they can see. When Francesco Borri, the 17th century mystic who claimed the Archangel Michael had appeared to him and granted him healing powers, was pursued by the Catholic Church for heresy, his followers didn't abandon him, they doubled down. The persecution confirmed what they already believed, that the world wasn't ready for what Borri represented. The Church's opposition became evidence of his significance. That is the feedback loop that makes movements self-sustaining. Now here is where I want to slow down and say something that I think matters. Everything I've just described is ethically neutral as a mechanism. It is a description of how belief works in human psychology, and it applies equally to movements that are genuinely harmful, to pure charlatans extracting money from vulnerable people, and to movements that produce real meaning and real value for the people in them. Apple under Steve Jobs operated on almost every one of these principles. Vague, emotionally resonant language about changing the world, extraordinary product launches designed as theatrical experiences, a devoted community with strong in-group identity, a clear enemy, the grey corporate conformity of the existing technology world, ritual and sacrifice, standing in lines, paying premium prices, defending the brand in arguments with non-believers. Was Apple a cult? In the technical sense Green is describing, the structure is almost identical, and yet millions of people derive genuine value from the products, the community, the sense of being part of something that was changing how humans interact with technology. The mechanism is morally neutral, what matters is what you build it around. This is Green's implicit challenge with this law. He's not telling you to become a charlatan. He's telling you to understand that the world is full of structures operating exactly this way, and that if you are building something real, something that offers genuine value, you are leaving power on the table by not understanding how belief actually functions in the people you want to reach. The game theory dimension of this law is significant, and I don't think most analyses give it enough attention. In ordinary influence, your leverage is proportional to what you can offer or withhold at any given moment. It is transactional and therefore fragile. The moment a better offer appears, the rational actor takes it. Your influence is always in competition. In belief-based influence, you have done something qualitatively different. You have made yourself the reference point by which other offers are evaluated. Your followers aren't comparing you to alternatives using the same framework they'd apply to anything else. They are comparing alternatives to you, and the alternatives are already operating at a disadvantage because they are outside the frame. This is why cult-like followings are so valuable strategically and so dangerous to those who find themselves inside them. The follower's ability to make an independent, rational assessment has been compromised, not necessarily through deception, but through the genuine psychological shift that happens when a person truly believes. They are no longer a free agent in the market for ideas. They have, in some meaningful sense, committed. For the person at the center, this creates extraordinary stability. Your position doesn't depend on being right about any particular thing. It depends on maintaining the feeling of belonging and meaning that you provide. Those are much harder to dislodge. The reversal is sharp, and Green is direct about it. If the disillusionment comes, and in large movements, it almost always eventually does, the energy inverts completely. The followers who are most devoted become the most hostile critics, because the betrayal isn't just of a product or a service. It's of a belief, of an identity, of the version of themselves they built around the movement. That kind of anger is not rational, and it is not proportional. It is existential, and it can destroy you faster than almost any external enemy could. This is why Green suggests that for some purposes, cultivating belief one person at a time, building individual relationships of genuine trust rather than mass movements of shared belief, is actually more durable. A single devoted ally who trusts you because of accumulated real experience is harder to lose than 10,000 followers who believe in you because of a story. The cult-like following is a high-leverage, high-volatility instrument. It amplifies everything in both directions. There's a reason I've been thinking about this law differently from the others in this series. Most of the 48 laws are about protecting yourself, managing your position, outmaneuvering opponents. They are defensive or tactical. Law 27 is different. It's about creation, about building something that outlasts any single interaction. And when I look at what the most significant movements of the last century have actually been, the ones that changed, not just who held power, but how people understood themselves and the world, almost every single one of them was operating on these principles. The great civil rights movements, the technological revolutions, the cultural moments that genuinely shifted consciousness. They all offered something to believe in. They all made people feel that they were part of something larger than themselves. They all had structure, ritual, sacrifice, and a clear sense of who the movement was pushing against. They all, in Green's language, played on people's need to believe. Whether that serves or exploits the people inside it comes down to one thing, whether what you are offering them is real. Mesmer's magnetic fluid did not exist. What he gave people was theatre dressed as science, extracting money from vulnerability. But the need he identified, the need to feel that something profound was possible, that ordinary life could be broken open into something larger, that need was completely real. It always is. Law 27 says, understand that need, understand it precisely and without sentimentality. Because if you are building something genuine, something that offers real meaning or real value, that understanding is the difference between a message that reaches people and one that never quite lands. The charlatans have always known how belief works. The question is whether the people with something real to offer know it too. That's Law 27. The members section this week goes into the game theory of belief cascades, why movements tip when they do, and what the structural conditions for that are. Links below. Next week, Law 28, enter action with boldness. That one is going to be considerably more fun. I'll see you there.